It is my honor and an extreme pleasure to moderate the, I need to look, matching transactions to the right registry, that I pronounce it right, with three serious heavyweights of our industry, a trio that rarely shares stage. I think in that combo it never happened so far, and even rarer gives away the secrets, wisdom, and knowledge about aircraft registry. On stage, we have the wonderful and highly knowledgeable Carolina Antonelli, was it pronounced right? Representing
very Italian sound.
the San Marino Aircraft Registry. Then we have one of the godfathers of offshore aircraft registration, Richard Smith, the person with probably the longest journey to get to Singapore. And with us, we have Sid, not to bastardize your name, from the 285 aircraft strong registry of Guernsey to Reg. Registering an aircraft is basically the first act you have to do when you want to operate an aircraft. Why? Because your registration determines your operational standards, it determines your airworthiness standards, it determines which pilot's licenses do you need, and sometimes it even influences the build standard your aircraft has. So determining an aircraft registry very soon in the process is crucial, and match it to your needs. Some registries cannot fly everywhere, but we will learn this in our session today. So, Carolina, the San Marino Aircraft Registry has been one of the big successes of our industry in the last 10 years. If you could summarize it in one word, what would be the recipe to success?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm very happy to be on this stage to represent the San Marino Aircraft Registry. So to reply to your question, Stephan, just to give you one word, maybe two, I would say top service, so high service. And I think that this is what is really make San Marino Aircraft Registry a successful registry. So our aim is always to create relationship with the client, just to understand their needs, their target timeline, and to solve any kind of issue, just sitting together and find a solution with our expert. In terms of high service, we mean also timely reply, because every day we try to reply to all our client requests in the same business days.
How many do you have? How many requests do you get per day?
A lot, really a lot. And we have like an internal policy that we need to reply within 4 hours, actually, not really within a day, but within 4 hours. So we always try our best to keep on track and try to give detailed response to clients, above all when there are new clients, so they're still learning how the registry works, which are our procedures, our processes. And of course, behind this high level of service, there is always a great team. So we work very hard. We try always to be trained just to be on top, on the beat of everything, and to provide the client the best experience and support throughout the registration process.
So the focus for San Marino is basically the first thing is customer first, and then whatever it's needed, then the authority has to step back.
Of course, always keeping safety and compliance, of course.
Because coming out of the other world, sometimes you have the feeling that the first person you need to satisfy is the regulator. Talking about regulators, Richard, Cayman operates very different to San Marino as far as I can tell. What is the main difference between an aircraft registry and you are, or not you, but Cayman Islands has a civil aviation authority its own, and this is run by you mainly, as far as I know. What's the key differences or the key advantages, which you probably highlight, of being so?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me again to be on this panel. Sid, you and I have done this a couple of times. It's nice to have Arlene with us today. So, yes, the Cayman Registry, we are a full regulatory authority under the Civil Aviation Authority. And that might be one of the primary differences. The Cayman Islands Aircraft Registry is a subset of the Civil Aviation Authority. So our mandate is to regulate everything aviation in the Cayman Islands and for aircraft registered in the Cayman Islands, wherever they may be based. So we have oversight, safety oversight of airports, navigational services. So everything that a full safety regulator would have oversight of, that's primary. We're not just an aircraft registry. So we're custodians of the registry, and it fits into all the other aspects that we have to do as a regulatory authority.
So you have much more on the desk than more.
Yes, yeah. We do have quite a bit that we have to consider, but it works well because there's interaction with the other disciplines that you have to deal with, and there are crossovers, and you get to see the full picture at all times in the whole regulatory oversight, and of course, we all talk about safety. Safety is our primary aspect, and we're all on the page. If we weren't providing safety oversight, none of us would be here. So we're all on a level page with that. But yes, we do have other responsibilities other than the aircraft itself.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, safety is basically a given. That's the minimum standard we need to have in our industry. It's a prerequisite. So if someone or any registrar, any operator, anyone is really operating unsafe, they are not there for long, which is obviously not the case with the Cayman CA. Talking about being in the industry for shorter periods than the rest, Guernsey is the youngest registry on the panel. We have been working at Primus with Guernsey on one or two occasions, and we have experienced it as much more towards the customer in terms of making the journey not as miserable as some else. Is that the biggest USP you have at Reg?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it is very much similar to what Carolina said as well about San Marino. It's about making it as personalized as possible, and that's to have that sort of relationship with the stakeholders. It's not just a gimmick. It's something that we truly value. And I was just talking to a gentleman before this panel, and he asked me that similar thing as well. That what is the distinguishing factor? And while I was sitting, I was thinking, how could I sit on this panel and actually prove it? So I thought about it. So here's my contact number, right? My personal contact number for everyone here. It's +31 646 198104. Anytime. That's the behavior.
Except of now.
Actually, you know what? I knew you were going to say that. So here's my phone as well. So we'll give it a try. And if it's not going to be me, it's going to be my registry manager, Julian. If it's not going to be Julian, it's going to be my VP Commercial, Davin, who is loitering around somewhere here. And that's the behavior we want to incentivize. It starts with that. It starts with making sure that the clients understand that for us, ensuring that their experience is as seamless as possible is the priority. Because at the end of the day, a civil aviation authority, an aircraft registry, it's not a complicated job in a way. We're registering aircraft. We want to make sure your aircraft can fly, issue an airworthiness document on it, and ensuring that you have the relevant flight ops guys to make sure that they're doing it properly. anything more than that, it's not necessary for us to be involved.
Yeah, it's very refreshing to hear that there are authorities who want the planes to fly. Richard, I once heard a joke that the biggest offshore aircraft registry is actually the FAA. Speaking about trustees, where's the big difference between an aircraft registered under November with an escrow agreement or a trustee agreement under Part 91, for example, and registered an aircraft offshore?
Yes, the N register is, as we know, is the biggest register, and they have a lot of responsibility. Smaller register like ourselves, like any of us here, we are able to service the client in a more personal way. I mean, when you think of the N register with over 100,000 aircraft, and probably thinking of more the airlines had priority than maybe even business aviation, if that's the case. But for a small register like ourselves, we can focus and give a more personalized attention to the client, and especially for business aviation, because business aviation is a niche that you have to understand that timeliness, efficiency is key if it's going to be successful. Clients who are looking for a registry, they're looking for someone who's responsive and can be efficient in providing you whatever oversight, whatever certifications you need, and you can't do that as efficiently in a large register like N register as you can do with one of the smaller registers like we have.
Yeah, when you think about the costs of, let's say, Global 8000, I don't know the list price now, and no one has stated it so far, at least not to me. Let's say this aircraft is a 75 million aircraft, and before we had someone on finances, if I just break down the numbers, having an aircraft sitting on the ground is around $10,000 per day just on financing. So having an efficient registry makes sense, and it basically doesn't, that the costs are secondary when you think about it, because every day you lose, it's $10,000. Yes, it's a driver, but I don't think it's the main driver. It should be service is always the priority.
And can I add, Stephan, I think it's also about one of the main features that the registries here would have is not only recognizing that there could be an issue, but then trying to solve it. And one of the things that has come to light recently with us is the privacy aspect. You know, a lot of ownership is something that the owners want to make sure that they're not getting tracked. And this was a huge issue for us in trying to mitigate it. Of course, from a registration perspective, we allow multiple ownership structures that the owners can use. But for us to do KYC, you know, you have to sort of go through the UBOs. Yeah. And some owners were even having some issues with that. So one of the things, and again, distinguishing from something like the FAA, is you can register your aircraft with 2Reg with a charter by demise. So if you have the equivalent of a lease agreement with the operator, with the management company, we will not be overseeing the owner's KYC, we'll be focusing on the operator only. So as long as the charter by demise agreement is something which is giving full operational control to the operator in using the aircraft, it gives the owner that comfort that the ownership of that won't even be something that us as a regulator will be analyzing. So these are subtle examples as well that, you know, for an organization as robust or as big as FAA wouldn't reach the right tables, whereas for us, that's something that's a priority.
Yeah, so basically an aircraft registered under 2Reg can be registered to the operator, not to the owner.
Absolutely.
So if someone tracks the ADSB, they'll see
the operator's
Aviation,
name.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
which is certainly a plus for a lot of operators. Carolina?
Something No, yeah, I agree with what Richard and Sid explained. Okay, it's working. Yeah, I think offshore registry offers also more neutral jurisdiction. So I think this is very attractive for international owners that may not want to put the US flag on the aircraft for political, economic, or operational reasons. Also from the legal framework under San Marino, we accept any foreign company, so they can keep their legal structure without needing to open a San Marino company or having to set up a trust like under the FAA. So the only requirement is for them to elect a domiciled representative in San Marino, so it's very, very easy for the owner. So I think this is attractive also, of course.
Mm-hmm. Richard, I think in Cayman the structure is different, right?
There are eligibility requirements based on our ANOTO legislation. It's quite wide, but there are certain restrictions, and in those cases, it can be registered under an SPV.
Okay. So you set up an SPV that needs to be then in the Cayman Islands?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the Cayman Islands. It could be in a Commonwealth country, the European Economic Area. So it still gives quite a wide breadth. In regards to registering with under the operator, we do a pretty wide due diligence that includes the UBO in any instance. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's important to know who the UBO is, and we have obligations for KYC and anti-money laundering and everything else, so we do carry out a widespread due diligence on any registrant.
But it's not really painful as far as I can remember. So it's just paperwork you have to go through, right? Sid, you're here in Singapore now since 4 months, you told me.
A month, not 4 months, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're setting up dependents here, or you have an office in Singapore?
Yeah, so I think that's essential for us. So we do have an office in Singapore, which has our registry and our airworthiness team. Part of our registry and airworthiness team that's based here. And I think that's very much based on the feedback that we have received from the industry. So with offices in Guernsey, if I have to fly all the way from Guernsey to Singapore, I think I lose 2 days. So we have added certain strategic locations, Singapore being one of them, Amsterdam being one of them, so that we're covering different regions to ensure that our stakeholders are getting that support in different time zones as well.
So Carolina, the Colindres family is currently launching the 3rd registry. So next, the 4th would be Singapore?
You never know. Never say never.
Probably, yeah. Because you mentioned that on the FAA or NREG, you can have some, or it has some operational implications that you might be restricted in some countries. Is there a distinct advantage to be registered offshore than, let's stay with the FAA because it's the biggest example? Richard, does someone want to say something about it?
Well, when someone's choosing to register, there are several things to look at. And area of operation is one thing. The jurisdiction of the register is another thing. And relations with other NAs is quite another, because, for instance, being able to operate within the U.S. with a TSA waiver authorization is very important for operators on foreign registered aircraft. So if you're not able to do that, then the owner would be restricted in how he can move the aircraft around. So it's very important to research the jurisdiction that you want to have it registered and what freedoms they might have in operating globally. But there are many things to consider, and sometimes it might even surprise you what what would drive owners to choose a jurisdiction. Some owners are concerned about getting the right registration that might have their kids' initials on it, and if they can't get that, they'll just choose another jurisdiction.
That's why you can have not basically whole sentences after the T7, right?
Yeah, so it really would amaze you at times what really would drive people for choosing to register.
Yeah.
I think on the operational side, it also comes down to who's asking the question. So one of the key reasons from an airworthiness perspective that a lot of our CAMO stakeholders and 145 stakeholders choose 2reg is because as compared to the FAA, where you have to then comply with the FAA regulations with parts that you're installing, with the airworthiness documents that we're issuing. Because 2reg has its own set of regulations, hypothetically speaking, if we've got an aircraft registered with 2reg and you've got serviceable parts from with an FAA release or an EASA release or a UKCA release or ANAC release or Transport Canada, you can install that on your aircraft, notwithstanding what type certification you're following. So we can issue a CFA on that aircraft, and you don't have to think about, oh, I'm in the FAA jurisdiction, so now I have to install a part which has an FAA release. So this is a huge advantage for the purposes of operating the aircraft.
I agree, yeah.
for the owner, for their CAMO, for the 145 to just not having to spend to source that part. And I saw a question there about the devaluation of the aircraft and how offshore registration can potentially cause that. Frankly, doing this makes it better. If you've got so much flexibility, what you're doing is actually bringing more value to your asset rather than anything else.
Yeah, the times where offshore aircraft registries had an impact on the value, I think it became so credible over time that is actually not the point. I had over the lunch, interesting conversation with an operator who has an AOC with one of you and also FAA aircraft, and I've asked them why they haven't done an offshore AOC, and they said clearly costs. If I have an FAA aircraft or November registered aircraft, I need to get the pilots every year on the simulators to the US. So just the cost implications of being able to use any simulator worldwide are immense. I just remember when this citation that M2 came out and the only simulator was in Wichita. When you have such a small aircraft, $80,000 per year is a huge cost to get pilots back and forth twice a year. So this is, of course, something you could save. Do you have any number you could think of how much someone could save compared to, let's say, a more traditional registry?
I think it comes down to what you define value. For me, time is value. So it's not necessarily only about the dollar amount, but Richard spoke about the FAA. Today, when you have to register your aircraft on the NREG, and honestly, this is not me taking the mickey of that. I think the authority is so comprehensive and they have so many different priorities that this is just not one of these. But you have to set up a US trust. You have to set up the aircraft then to enter the US trust. That's 3 months lost. So again, when we speak about the aircraft on ground, I think registration on 2reg is 24 hours once we've done our analysis on the UBO, probably the same with Cayman and T7. That is the value. I think anyone who's not putting a dollar amount to that is just, I don't know, probably absent to understanding how significant that actually is.
Yeah, I would agree. When someone would like to charter their aircraft out, because sometimes, as we know, owners don't use it that often, or after a while they find out that the costs are just a bit higher than expected, so they're looking for some additional revenue. Do you have opportunities or possibilities on your register to do an AOC, or are there AOCs already on your within your jurisdiction that basically could manage the aircraft?
Yes, actually, yeah, we give the owner to have the possibility of conduct revenue flights. Actually, not really the owner, but the operator. So through the AOC, the Air Operator Certificate, we have actually issued like almost then 4 AOC with active more than 30. And this is great for the owner because when there is no possibility to do charter flights and revenue flights, he can still use his aircraft for his private business without having to re-register the aircraft for private operation, because we give the operators the possibility to conduct private flights for the owner, keeping the aircraft under their AOC management.
Richard?
Yes, we do offshore AOCs, and it's something that we've only started doing in the last several years. Most of our AOCs before that would, well, all of our AOCs before that would be onshore. But now we do have a number of AOCs that are operating in jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Sharjah and Jordan and a few places. That part of the attraction for the AOC is also for the management of aircraft for owners, because having your aircraft managed under a structure like an AOC provides owners with the confidence that the aircraft is being appropriately managed, more so than just being owner operated and managed itself. So there's several advantages to that, and not just for charters, because in many instances what you find is that owners don't want to charter their aircraft. They want it managed under a good, solid management organization, but they don't want it chartered. And then there are those who would like to offset and have the aircraft available for charter. So, but yes, we do provide that opportunity with issuing EOCs offshore.
So just to clarify, the difference between an onshore and an offshore AOC in Cayman is that you don't need to have, under the offshore, local representation, right?
Offshore, you have to have local representation, and that's why it took some time for us to set that structure up, because we now have a special economic zone, like a free zone that allows concessions for setting up structures, representation for principal place of business in the territory. So for to meet that legal requirement, that would allow the operation to be done offshore. There has to be onshore representation.
Oh, got it. So the office needs to be on the Cayman Islands, but it's not part of the taxation, right?
It ensures that there is a physical presence in the territory.
Yeah.
It has to do to meet principal place of business.
Makes sense, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, same for us. So Ridge facilitates both private and commercial operations. So we have AOCs and we've got private operators, and depending on the choice, of course, whether they want to charter the aircraft, the AOC option is possible. What I always say, though, to the management companies, to the clients, to the ultra-high net worth individuals, when we're speaking to them, is you have many options of registries now, and honestly, there are 3 on this table. You know, so there are options in terms of what operational efficiencies that you can gain. I think the question really that management companies or advisors to the with individuals they should be offering is, what jurisdiction do you prefer? Because I think that's where there are certain distinctive aspects that link to it. And Guernsey, in that sense, is home to specialized law firms, resident agents, accounting firms, asset management companies. And these are not aviation companies, but these are organizations, essentially, that are acting on behalf of ultra-high net worth individuals to manage their assets holistically. So, and the most recent example, I think I spoke to you about it, Stephan, is one of the aircraft that we registered recently for pure private operations was because the owner has a hobby of collecting vintage cars. And Guernsey was used as a base to store those vintage cars. And their asset manager in Guernsey recommended to Reg for them to register their private jet. I mean, these are such subtleties which me as a regulator sitting here can't give you the USPs on, but I think as stakeholders who are talking to the people that own these extremely valuable assets, we should really urge not only to think about why 2Reg can register an aircraft in 24 hours, but what other assets you can consolidate in a jurisdiction in a predictable, safe, and an efficient manner.
Like Richard said before, the reasons why someone is registering are various. This could be one, something I probably wouldn't have thought of. In the past, we sometimes had the issue that we had an aircraft stranded and being deregistered somewhere that we needed to get back to airworthiness, to import it to somewhere that it has been sold. And some authorities have an issue when there is no export CFA. Is there a possibility with you that an aircraft that hasn't been issued an export CFA according to Chicago Convention can be brought into the registry, that you could fly it out of probably places where you have no maintenance, for example?
Yes, so I think something to mention, and I know traditional CAs have had that requirement of having the export CFA. The export CFA in any case is not determining the airworthiness aspects, the CFA is. So from our perspective, because every time we issue a CFA or a special flight permit, we're going to be inspecting the aircraft. We're comfortable as long as the aircraft is deregistered from the previous authority that will register it without an export CFA. And we've done it recently. We've had certain instances on the commercial aviation side where I think last year we had 2 former Thai Airways A340s registered, which had been stateless for 3 months. And why the owner did that, we don't know. But we worked with the CAMO to reconstruct the records, to get the aircraft on the 2Reg, to issue a special flight permit for it to go into maintenance. So as long as you've got an industry partner that's willing to make the aircraft safe, we'll be there.
Carolina?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with Sid, and is an option also under San Marino. So for any aircraft who, for any reason, doesn't have a valid export survey, we have the so-called unsatisfactory export survey route, where we normally require our client to provide us with the previous export, which for sure they will have, just with the confirmation of the TCDS compliance. Because part of our assessment is to assess that the aircraft meet that specific TCDS. And of course, this is of great advantage because sometimes some transaction or some process gets stuck without an export, but not under San Marino. And actually for B-Reg coming to San Marino, we have a waiver policy of the export survey, because from experience we know that it doesn't comply with our requirement because it doesn't specify the TCDS on that. So again, we will activate this process, which is very easy, and it's just a more deeply assessment of the aircraft records. So
basically, Chinese registry.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a special process for that. Great. Richard, I guess as you have everything in-house.
Yes, we're not dependent on export to bring the aircraft to the register, because we have means of satisfying ourselves for the issuance of the COV. So it'll be similar to has been described by the other authorities here.
Yeah, great. Let's make that another plus that you have compared to some other authorities and regulations. Richard, last word before we go into Q&A, and something I haven't told you before. If you would need to say something about San Marino, what would it be?
Jorge is my friend. David is my friend. No, we all respect each other as the registrars, because we see it as a niche for serving the industry. And prior to 2007, there weren't very many options. There were like 3 options, probably Aruba, Bermuda, and Cayman. Since 2007, we have quite a bit of options now, and which I think is good for the industry, and it's great to see, San Marino, who has been very successful in a short time, and Sid with 2 regs. So I think overall the registries serve the industry well. There's lots of work, lots of opportunities out there for all the registries, and I think we benefit from each other.
So Carolina, when you think about all the positive sides Sid and his registry have, which one would you highlight?
I mean, at the end of the day, we are all colleagues. Yeah, we are competitors, but of course, I think there must be competition, but a good one, just to always do better. And so I'm very happy to be on the stage with my good competitors. And yeah, I think Sid is a very knowledgeable person, and he brought good input on the stage.
So Sid, your turn on Richard.
Actually, a massive thank you. That's what I would say, because as the youngest registry on this panel, we wouldn't have had the chance to surprise ourselves with a lot of things that we have done had it not been for Richard, for Cayman, to have left that legacy. So we were talking this morning, 2013 when Touret started, more than 1,100 registrations. I owe it to all for Richard for starting the culture that we can think differently, that we can act differently, maintain our standards, and yet serve the industry which so deserves the very best.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, we still have a few minutes left for questions. Are there anyone old school, as Alistair said before, from the floor? No. 3, 2, 1. Good. I'm not sure if I see Slido correctly, but there's nothing on it. Right?
You've got 2 questions.
Okay.
Slido. One is, how can AI or technology enhance services for registrations, amendments, and similar processes?
Tough question. Who has played around with AI from you?
So we're working on it, actually, on our registration aspects, and actually from our perspective, the 3 core aspects of our, let's say, business, being registration, airworthiness, and flight operations. Registration for us is the one where we think AI can play a huge role. So we are testing internally. It's much more based on workflow. As an example, we have to register an aircraft. Okay, we're going to be looking for corporate details, articles of association for the company, the shareholders register, the directors register. There is a possibility that we would rely on it going forward. I think innovation is not it's not a choice, it's mandatory for us. So definitely looking into it. I think the thing which, from a personal perspective, scares me a little bit is I don't want to lose the personal touch. The whole reason we have gotten to any success that we've had is that we are engaging personally. I don't want anyone here making an application on our website and talking to a bot. That's what we want to avoid. So it's about creating that balance. So we'll give it our shot, and as always, we'll consult with the industry.
Taking probably something from the back office work, validating documents and things like that, that it could be helpful, I see, within the close future. How can an aircraft and prospective aircraft owners be reassured that using an offshore registry will not devaluate their asset? Well, I guess a good chance is a Cayman registry, probably. Cayman. Cape Town Registry. Richard?
Well, can't say we can give you a guarantee, but for the many years that the registry has existed, the feedback we've gotten is that the oversight that's provided, the compliance of the that are required to maintain the aircraft to the highest standards has enhanced the asset itself. So I wouldn't anticipate being any difference with the other registries as far as ensuring that everything is compliant and the asset is kept to the highest standard to maintain this value.
Yeah, I agree. I never had an issue with an offshore registered aircraft to bring it to somewhere else, because usually the people managing it are very professional, and it's more about the people who do the work than actually the registry which is on. You can have some aircraft on basically not less credible registered where everything is top notch. So I don't think that it has an impact anymore. Good. In this case, I thank my panelists, and please give a hand to the three of them. Thank you. You are released.